back, and I look forward to post-game lobby.
Welcome to the post-game lobby, where I'm joined by Mitch Cripple Warspals and H2K's Neil, Prolly, Hamad. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. And
I was just drafted H2K. I'm glad you got the update.
We got it. Prolly, H2K coach. Let's take a look at week 7 of the EU LCS Spring Split. It was the last week of cross-group play, and when we look back at the standout series from this week, we had to look first at the rematch of the Summer Split Finals, G2 versus Splyce. In Game 1, it looked like Splyce perhaps had come back to some of their form. Trashy was on the Gragas. It started to look better for Splyce.
Yeah, so this was the first time G2 faced off against Splyce since that Finals in Krakow, and a lot of questions were there around Trashy. You know, his engage, his voice within the Splyce lineup. He was drafted an early engaged champion with Wundu on a strong winning top laner, and I think that worked very well for Splyce. Now, in the second game, the game kind of ended early. Like, this particular invade here after a kill in the bottom lane made it so that Trashy just, like, he went for a panic play. They should never start these Raptors, and G2 had a super clean up, so it went all the way to a game 3 to in the end decide what would end up happening, but I think it still showed that G2 was the superior team.
Yeah, I mean, I still like to see what Splyce has done from where they came from.
Yeah.
But it's still clear that since G2 never really regressed the way Splyce did, they're still kind of ahead of Splyce right now. So this is kind of just G2's, you know, nothing too different than what they've been normally doing. And I mean, this is just Sven getting back into form again, you know.
Right, Game 2 and 3 was business as usual, right? And Sven playing Ezreal. Bang makes it look easy over in Korea, but Sven, the European domestic equivalent, I think.
I mean,
that
wasn't Sven playing, that was G2 Niels right there.
Yeah, that was G2 Niels more like it.
Back.
And a great performance overall from Sven in that series. But the second series we wanted to highlight a little closer to home for a part of this analyst desk. Probably 2-0 victory over Misfits. You guys made it look pretty easy.
Yeah, I just drafted a really strong bot lane that just gets dive for free, and we take, we take some farm on the top side. So I was really happy about this play. Nuclear and Che did a great job dying down here. They had no other play. And this is, the mad scientist Jankos solo dives in with GA to bait a fight.
It takes a true genius to know that he has GA available and then the Kha'Zix passive on the ulti to really lure in the honestly unsuspecting opponent here in Misfits.
Yeah, I mean, this is, don't play your cards, play your opponent. He knew they want to fight me, they want to kill me. So he just goes in and gives them the free kill. And it turns well. And this is, Febby does the exact same thing, walks into an Ari Charm for fun and dies. And this is just, my team playing on a separate level where they can 4v5 these fights, and they just need them to come to them.
It looked a lot more simple than we expected. Is that fair to say, probably from your side? Were you expecting more out of Misfits?
Yeah, I don't know. I expected that this would be a lot harder for my players, but they just played so well. They kind of made it look really easy. And
Game 2 was helped by the invade, though. Because this would have been a nice game, I think, stylistically, early game versus the late game. But the damage Jankos did to the economy of Misfits in the early game was just like way too much.
Yeah, and then even the dives top, this is something that like Misfits were doing to other teams and making it look really good. So it was satisfying having us being able to just dive Alfari twice in a row in this game. But I expected them to have these kind of things like covered on their end where, they can make the play, but it won't happen to them. So I was really surprised we were able to do these plays so seamlessly.
A lot of that H2K playmaking coming from Jankos as well. You were talking about some of the early pathing. That's why Jankos got player of the game for that series. So overall, a solid week for H2K, but after 4 weeks of cross-group battles, we need to take a look at how Group A, Group B shake up as they're about to fight inside the groups once again. When we look at those standings, I mean, Group A, G2 undefeated still. It's been a good split for them so far.
And they have a two series buffer, and if they were to tie the Misfits, there is still that massive game differential that's helping them as well. So they're definitely in a good spot. But I'm looking personally at H2K right here, plus 11 win-loss in the game differential, solidly in first place, looking for growth. The bot lane is willing to sacrifice themselves, which is a whole new story.
Yes. They want to win. They don't want to win lane, they want to win the game. So this is our time. You know, we play at UOL next, so it's really going to show in the standings how we do next week.
There was a little movement at the bottom of the table as well, with Giants and Rocket exchanging positions throughout the week, but unfortunately for Origen fans, 0-9 on series still, despite picking up 2 important game wins this week to break some of those losing streaks. We're going to take a closer look at the state of the league, so if you're joining us in the client, be sure to hit up youtube.com/LolEsports for the extended edition of the post-game lobby. It's been a big week for teams, though, and teams looking to get those wins, looking to climb the standings. We're actually going to head over and check in with QuickShot. He's standing by with Giants Man in the Jungle.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yes, I am here with Memento. First of all, congratulations on the win, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Games 1 and 3 against Origen just looked clean and easy for Giants, and specifically how you reacted to Wisdom's pressure. How and why was it so simple?
Well, there aren't many paths that you can take in the jungle these days, so the most normal one is that the enemy clears Raptors, red, then he takes his blue, and then he goes for enemy Krugs. And when you do this on bot side, it's really risky, so the bot lane can always collapse. So I always tell my bot lane that they can just check their Krugs, and they can just force anything, like they can just force his flash. Most of the times you get his flash, or he has to retreat, he gets real low, and then we get free vision of the jungler, we know where he is.
Is this something that you can only do against a team who is struggling like Origen, or is this something that you can apply to really any of the teams in the league?
Anyone, actually, because a lot of junglers are greedy. They want the Krugs. They give gold. Like, everyone wants them. And that's really easy, especially with Raptors as well. So we just predicted where Wisdom is going to go, and I told them to check every camp, and we can always fight over that, and we can just catch them.
So, Memento, it's been a bittersweet week. Yes, you have now taken down Origen and, you know, tied Rocket for 4th place in the group, but you could have had another series win. Obviously, the bug, game-impacting bug, caused the remake, and then you guys went on to lose the series. What was that like for you and how you felt at the time?
I mean, it was devastating, because when you're in a pause, you sit there for like 20 minutes, and we wanted to play so clean, and we've been practicing so hard, and we just wanted to play the clean, like, I honestly like destroyed Joker as well there. So we had everything we needed, you know. So when they paused the game and we're at Nash, we're about to do Nashor. So I'm sitting there for 20 minutes, and you can't talk during pauses. So it's like mentally, you can't even. Yeah, it's exhausting. And then I sit there for 20 minutes. I think everyone in my team just sits there for 20 minutes, and we're thinking of every possible scenario that could happen. We do Nash. If they come, we flash over. We do this, and then we can play for bot turret in mid, and we can get a free dragon. We can put deep wards on our bot side. We can do this, and we sit there thinking for 20 minutes, and then the referee says, "It's a remake," and then everyone's head just. We just went mental boom, and honestly, I'm not going to give it an excuse. We are professionals. We should be able to actually perform and handle this. But it was really, because I've never been through something like this. Because in my head, I was on my way home. I was like, this game is over. I'm already home. I'm going to go home and watch some more LCS or something. I knew the game was over. And then they say remake, and then everyone was like super frustrated. Everyone was super angry, and we were like, oh my God, I can't believe this was a remake. And then we get 5 minutes to choose new side and new draft and on tilt, and that's just unacceptable, honestly. Like, we should honestly postpone the match to another day so everyone could calm down. And I think that was really, like,
it's
mentally exhausting for us.
It's tough, and I respect your honesty in saying that, you know, yes, maybe in the remake, not tilting would have helped. And I also think it has started a discussion. You know, we are talking about the scenario and how it happened, but unfortunately, you know, within the context of the rules, in the rule set, Vitality bounced back, and it means you guys are now tied for 4th, right? The split in itself was looking like Giants were going to be 4th even before that result. Maybe if Fnatic keep losing, there was a chance to catch. But with the context of where we are, looking forward, back to Group A play, what are you looking at for yourself and for Giants?
I mean, beat everyone. I mean, even though we're like 4th team and maybe we're not that good, but we're definitely going to work hard and actually try to beat everyone and get playoffs, no matter what.
All right, well, hopefully you guys can pick up a few more of those wins. Memento, thank you so much for talking to me. Congratulations on the win against Origen. We're going to head back up to the analyst desk with Stress and the boys.
Thank you very much, QuickShot. You know, obviously a tough interview. A win today, though, for Giants is an important win for the standings. Giants, you heard Trevor talking about it. tying for that 4th spot. They do currently own the head-to-head, and I believe the game difference against Rocket right now. But there's been so much movement at the bottom of the table right now. What's the most influential thing of the week for you guys?
I think Giants just still improved though. Like even that, like yes, it sucked, right? I think we can all agree that it wasn't the ideal scenario. But in the end, they still have improved their early game a lot. They're still in control of their own destiny. Yes, they would have had maybe a game buffer extra, but these guys can easily beat the team below them and even challenge Fnatic right there. So like it's all within their grasp still. I think they just need to round out the edges, play the right comps against the right teams. Because I personally like these like greedy all-in early game comps when you play against bottom tier teams.
No.
When you play against, not against good teams, but if you play bottom tier level, like in the context of this, in the context of this particular matchup, what they played today, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's just, especially when you play against like bottom tier teams, they're normally bottom tier because they like miss fundamental elements of the game, normally including closing the game. So you don't have to all in on these like early game comps because they're not naturally, snowball teams on like the bottom, or else they win 50-50 of their games. So that's why I'm not a big fan of like the all-in early game. But I will say, yes, so far Giants' progression has been very noticeable. He was mentioning even when they're like taking the Baron, what they're thinking of doing next. Yeah, in that game, for instance, they had a really big lead, and they weren't diving tier 2s or diving like inhibs. They were literally waiting for Baron to spawn and taking it. So I think they're understanding the game a lot more than these like other bottom teams, and that's like good growth for at least next split.
Is that the kind of pattern? Because we've seen it a lot in these bottom of the table games where they go later. Is that the pattern that these teams should be playing for? Like have some aspect of late game within your gameplay and don't completely focus on like snowballing early, or do you think that that's kind of going for that all-around comp where you do have some of everything is just going to kind of not be great at one particular facet?
I mean, I'm just thinking, if I have to draft, like just to win against like a bottom team and I'm drafting, I would pick some Mondo late game stuff because there's just, they make so many mistakes. So you don't really need like the early game insurance because you have this late game insurance where they don't play late game that well. They're not in the scenario that often. And you can kind of capitalize on that with more late game comp.
Yeah, but then you're also coaching a lower tier team. If you give them later game scaling picks very often, I think do you agree then that they're probably like not going to win lane? Like late game is generally associated with like losing lane, right?
Yeah, well, not necessarily losing, but you don't want to take like fights early. Like on Ezreal, he's not necessarily going to lose the lane. But you're gonna buy
in
tier.
lower tier Ezreals lose lane.
Yeah, but you're gonna buy like this tier, and then once you buy the tier, you're gonna like chill and just Q poke. You're not gonna all in. And yeah, maybe them understanding like, don't all in right now. You don't have great items would be a harder concept, depending on like the.
But isn't this coming from the same Prolly that was if I'm coaching a lower tier team earlier in the show, you said I'm gonna teach them the first 10 minutes of the game, and teach them well. I think if you draft like an Elise Renekton, then teach them the first 10 minutes well. You teach them how to actually dive a champion, get a lead. I mean, that might get you more benefit because...
Well, see, the difference is I would teach them the early game first, for sure, if I was coaching them. Yeah. For some reason, if I wasn't coaching them, but they were like, I hired you to do one draft, I'd be like, all right, guys, we're full late game, man. Let's do Nasus Vigar and just survive.
Infinite scaling.
Yeah, just
try and get super late game. It's an interesting thing because I think the week after IEM, a lot of teams got shown how to play against some of the best teams with the Raptors, the influence that those early jungle paths have. We've seen that kind of stop, or at least be figured out by the teams. They're these kind of one-shot metas that come up that everybody's playing around Raptors for 2 weeks and then everything changes. Like, is that even something bottom-tier teams should be concerning themselves with?
I think that's not important. I think it's like, when you get it to more fundamentals, like how to play early game, you don't have to like tell your team what they're supposed to do. Then yeah, like you fine tune it by being more efficient, taking the Raptors because it gives more XP at level 1, stuff like that. But if you're just like, gradually getting better, if you fit this in because you're a jungler who really cares about efficiency, then sure. But this isn't something you should like press on your team. Like you really need to understand this, specific meta of starting Raptors because you could play around it and not be at a huge like deficit or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamentals are obviously communication, and the fundamental, and which is really hard to implement but very easy to spot outside of a game, is that plays are just not planned out. Like playing in the moment, nobody's communicating like, this is my plan in the next 1.5 minutes. Does it fit your plan? because we may have something different in mind. Like so often you'll see a jungler pathing to top side. Right before he gets there, the top laner will push out and try to base for items. Like both of these guys have a great idea, you know? One gets a lane lead from a nice base, the other guy tries to set up a gank, but they're not on the same page. Like earlier, like we saw Origen set up a dive top. Equalizer goes out, Equalizer drops before Wisdom gets there. Wisdom then, I don't know, he's dancing around a Maokai or something, and then he dies. And then suddenly what should have been a clean dive and a snowball play ends up backfiring into a complete throw.
I want to turn our attention from the bottom of the table and coaching there to maybe the top of the table, because a lot of the times, you know, we see G2, H2K. I asked Paravival this about Misfits and what they'd have to do to beat G2. Where do you see a team like H2K? I'm going to start with you, Mitch, because otherwise Prolly kind of gives you the answer. What do you think H2K need to do to actually start taking games off teams like G2?
Oh, we've already talked about this. They need to stop greeting in the late game. For sure. Your players need to stop shouting in fights because they go like, go, 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 go. And then there's nobody that says, can we actually alter this call once it's in motion? No, like once H2K late game launches a call, the train keeps on going. Like it doesn't stop for anything. Like Odoamne will dive the backline, the enemy top laner will dive your backline, and at that point, it is just praying whoever wins. Is that somewhat accurate, probably? Or am I just a charlatan?
All right, well, number one, teamfight war cries are a necessity in League of Legends, all right? If you heard Flash Wolf Scrim, you would understand. If you heard, So I think that's fine. Maybe everything else you said was correct. Maybe.
I think Prolly's just remembering back to his days playing in the NA LCS with Zuna. Because that guy, speaking of war cries, that guy was... The whole building would shake.
Yeah, I wasn't even on his team and I could hear him. Like, I know who they're going for in this team fight, guys.
I wonder who they're targeting right here. But on a serious note, probably, like, what is the... Without sharing too much, what is one of the, maybe one of the things you already fixed? Like instead of saying what you're going to fix next, what has been something you've been working on, say 2 weeks ago with H2K, where you now see noticeable improvement?
I would definitely say, I mean, you brought up like the team fighting, like greed and stuff. I would say that's improved a lot.
I would say that too.
And we haven't gotten to show it that much, so I wouldn't say we're done fixing it and I'm not going to look over that next week. That's definitely going to be a big focus of mine for analysis. But I don't know, I think that was like the most obvious one to me. Like, you know, I heard them team fighting in comms and no one was yelling to dive and everyone was like, we could play this slowly. You know, like Nuclear wasn't just getting dove and everyone just left him and said bye-bye. You know, so things were a lot nicer in team fights from my perspective. So I was really happy with that.
It's not only just fighting against the top of Europe that we've got to even start thinking about, right? Because you mentioned playing against Flash Wolves, and the international stage obviously is on everybody's minds as we close in on MSI. We saw the European meta not work so well. I mean, G2 got to the final, but what does Europe as a whole need to focus on now when we look towards an event like MSI?
That's like it's a hard question and there's no easy answer. Because
otherwise we'd be winning worlds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If we knew it right that quickly.
Yeah, but I mean the meta, knowing if it's right or wrong it's really kind of, there just has to be more work done and there's no guarantee we'll figure it out. Because if you remember, 2015 Worlds when lane swaps were a thing.
Oh, EU Ace was big.
And EU had this like really dominant lane swap that was just the best way to do it, but Korea had this different one. And, in Korea, no one was getting huge advantages or anything. It was just a kind of even like agreement, like we do lane swaps this way. And then when Europe went over to create a boot camp, we showed them this way, and they got destroyed in lane swaps. Every single scrim was 2K gold lead at 10 minutes. We'd eventually lose because they're better, but they still were just doing it wrong because their meta was wrong, and no one in LCK was changing it. They just kind of agreed this is the way we play it. So it's really hard to tell in Europe, like, are we playing it correctly now? Because no one's really challenging it and changing it. Everyone's agreeing and just trying to perfect their style instead of throwing a huge wrench in the whole pick ban.
I think that's interesting because it has that weird two-way street, right? Where we've started picking up. Europe was later to the Ziggs as an adoption for bottom lane, whereas like LCK were playing it from week one. So there is always kind of that swap of information that we see. I find that really intriguing.
I think it's always worth, at least when you see an outlier in terms of meta, to consider the strengths and see why it came to be. It may not necessarily fit within the local meta game, but I think it's always worth considering. And there's just always you just always need to have an open mind, because if you look back to the start of LCS, like Varus wasn't even that high priority. A few things did change, but not to the degree where he is now permaban on like red side constantly. So like there has to be a champion right now with a certain build and a play pattern that nobody has discovered some guy right now is sitting in gold. It's like, I found the new best thing. Pro players, please listen to me. It is actually this. Same with like the way Blue Ezreal eventually came to be, right? Like some guy finds that build and it works. We just need to always keep an open mind. I think a similar example is Malzahar support. Like people asked me this in the past. I was like, nah, you're trolling. This champion is useless. And then somebody showed me like, no, if you max Voidlings, you're actually an AP carry in the bot lane. And I was like, turns out I was wrong.
Yeah, well, we've got to keep an open mind about, meta and things, but we'll be closing in our focus next week a little bit more because we're celebrating everything in the lofty part of the Rift as top lane week heads to our schedules for the entire week. There's a lot going on for top lane week. Head over to eu.lollysports.com for more information on upcoming interviews, educational content, and on Friday is a very special treat as we're bringing you a top lane focused companion stream with Odoamne and Soaz, which you really don't want to miss.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to that, Mitch.
I'm really excited for it. I pitched the idea of a top lane stream because bot lane stream went very successfully. Everybody was on board, and then the official decided to cast it, so he'll be taking that one. No salt there at all. No. Definitely excited for him to bring that because I love like any lane specific streams is when we're paired with having smart top laners that also having personality that is worth looking into more. Like, Odoamne very well. I think he can be very funny if he's in his comfort zone. So I really hope we get to show more of that next week.
Well, talking about top lane laning phase will be definitely his comfort zone, so he'll be happy about that. I do kind of hope, like, unlucky that it's like 2 super tanks top that do nothing. So there's just like, what do we talk about? Like, you're not allowed to trade in this lane because you won't kill him. I kind of hope that happens because it'll be funny, but I kind of want to see like interesting top lane stuff happen too. Well,
let's take a look at the matches that are actually going to be on the focus as Group A and Group B go back to fighting in amongst themselves. You can see Thursday we kick off Origen versus Vitality. Then later on in the week, H2K Unicorns. That's going to be a great series. Look at those Friday series. G2 Misfits. Oh, that's a top lane matchup that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. H2K facing off against Unicorns. I think it's a good timing. I think it's a good moment for H2K to play the Unicorns because there's been progression and the Unicorns, they're still quite stagnating. I think are you happy that you face them this week or would you rather even wait a few more weeks more?
I like it right now because kind of Misfits was our first kind of test going towards like playoffs, like how our prep was like paying off because we were doing much more hardcore prep for Misfits. So the same is going to be for UOL. It's like we get our second test a week later. So it's going to be really good to get it out of the way now and figure out like what was wrong this time, what was right against Misfits and stuff like that. But hopefully the G2 Misfits matchup, I actually hope G2 doesn't underestimate Misfits because like we did 2-0 Misfits, but they were a really strong team. So if G2's going into this thinking like, oh yeah, H2K easy one, we can beat H2K, so we should be able to beat Misfits. I think it's going to be pretty rough.
They also have a bit of a buffer, so this could for us be the first time that we see G2 experimenting, and that could also spice up that matchup.
Yeah, very interesting. The G2 players even saying themselves, they think H2K are stronger. We did see that in the games this week, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out on the Rift next week. It's time for us to log off for the evening. Thank you very much for joining us, Prolly, and thank you, Mitch, for being on the desk.
Welcome.
We're going to be back on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European time to kick off Week 8, top lane week of the EU LCS Spring Split. Playoffs in Hamburg are on the horizon. It's sure to be an explosive week. We'll see you then. Good night.
Wisdom repels up into the air. Sartorius tanking up the turret. Now Origen are running for their lives. Run walk to safety. Nahun saves Wisdom's life. Making their way in. Dragons going low. Making front of them. Stolen! Giants get their first dragon.
Next time, do the shot. Drake, don't farm camps. Do Drake.
21 minutes and no champion has died yet until Beckett gets sniped.
Round warp into Hourglass does it safely. Now Nahun's the target. He gets pulled backwards as the tower goes down. Origen, they're late. They're sloppy. It's messy to the fight.
Nexus turret 1 and 2 are down Origen. They are routed. They cannot defend their base. And Giants take down Origen 1-0.
Wisdom's going to use that Dragon's Rage kit to buy some time. First blood easily picked up by Knight.
Okay, keep going. I can kill 6 with ult. I can kill 6. I can double. You're taking. I got him. Nice. Wow.
It's a 1-for-1 until Hustler is killed. Nahun puts the hammer down, flashes forward, kicks EQ backwards, and it's a double kill for Nahun.
Run. They're reload. Don't worry. Please. shit, please recall.
Legion's got mana for days and he can keep firing those shot blasts. Knight will be the target. The hammer to the sky. Legion gets one. Ghost Blade. Oh! It's the Luden's Echo.
You poke?
Elder Dragon's going up first. Oh, he's solid! Memento gets it. Wisdom's still looking to kick them away. Super minions onto the Nexus, and after one hell of a dramatic siege, Origen even up the series 1-1. Slightly awkwardly plays, we jump to the river, Nathan's in trouble, he's coming to support, but Knight pops him, and Flaxish turns it around.
Can win.
Flash dredge line, Pekka looks to go down, that's the 4th kill of the game for Giant. This is now the Memento looking to set it up. Ha! You can't escape Meowkai. Origen, Giants, they kill Sartorius on the side lane. It's a killing spree for Knight as Tabs gets dumped. Double kill for Knight. The Nexus turn is the focus. A 5-man